Hello, 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 everyone.
Hello.
Dahlia dances
Welcome.
without music.
I know, I'm like dancing without the
Why is
music.
already dancing?
Um, Welcome to Cut the Shit, Cue the Genius. And this is like our second episode already for this year. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Awesome. Happy 2024. May it be happy and prosperous and successful, and may you kick ass, but have a Zen moment to it as well. Um, and we are so lucky because in our last episode, we had all our geniuses pipe in so quickly about topics that they want to talk about things they want to like vent about. And all of a sudden, our dear, dear friend who actually just lives like maybe an hour away from me, literally, Jenn Artura, she's like, let's talk salaries. So guess what? The topic of the cut the shit, cue the genius, your wish is our command. So we are talking about salaries in the B2B event space. And then everybody's like, hell yes. I have never seen LinkedIn more on fire about wanting to talk about this. Sean, like he's one of our regulars. This is like a bar. This is like Cheers bar, you know? We have a regulars here. Victoria is on. Good morning. Good morning. Jenn, thank you so much for taking on this very, very, very important topic and thorny, I might add. But hey, this is what we do and the Cut the Shit show. Jenn is a fractional corporate. I don't want to say event like guru or anything. Like she's the bomb. Like she has all these perspectives. They bubble up in regards to everything that has to do with events, with mindset, with growth. And I know what you guys, ladies, are thinking of right now, what I just did. But when, in the sense of even reorganization of teams, business structures, it's all in Jenn's head, which is absolutely fantastic. And Jenn, tell us, what are you doing at the moment, and what are you looking for at the same time?
Mm. Well, hi everybody. I'm a former corporate events executive, and so I worked in Silicon Valley. I live in Boston, but I worked in Silicon Valley for, I don't know, 14 years commuting and leading event teams there at a VP level. And recently, about a year ago, left the corporate space and started doing event consulting, which is a bit of a new thing. We don't have a lot of event consultants out there, and also fractional event leadership roles. And so I help people create strategy, design portfolios, look at 360 event overall strategies. I help them with their businesses. I do experience design, do lots of different things, but really what I do is help people identify and solve problems with group experiences. So that's, kind of what we all do. So I come to this conversation with experience on the corporate side, and then, a little bit new experience on what it's like to be out on your own in this.
Perfect. So, good morning, B. Murphy. So Bruno and myself, we already had like this chat with you, Jenn, in regards to some of the points, and we had a little vent moment, and then we had aha moments that we want to share with our other geniuses. But we're asking everybody that's listening in, when it comes to the salaries and when it comes to what you're seeing in the industry right now, or any ideas that you would want to see is happening with the salary. I want to say evolution. I'm not going to say revolution, because I do think that 2024 is going to be a key year to try to put some sort of challenges to bed. Please share and, be as loud as you can with us here. You are our geniuses. And I knew Leanne was going to be on this session as well. So let's start off with, the challenges and the problems that we have. And I know there's a lot of salary reports that are always in, that people refer to from different entities, et cetera. So let's talk about that for a second. Jenn, what are you looking at? Like when you look at these reports, what like stands out the most?
Well, I think, each report that comes out is just it's a very small data point into the bigger picture, because I think there maybe are 130,000 plus event professionals out there, and define event professional, is sort of one bucket, right? How do you define what an event professional is? But when you look at these reports, I mean, the latest one, Convene, which you called out in your invite, was only about 350 participants. So, it's kind of hard to get a sense of the accuracy of that data when you're looking at a much larger pool of event professionals, but a really small subset of data. So, I looked at other, talking with you about this, the conversation, looked at reports from last year. I looked at another one that was done by meetings.net, another one that was done by Goldcast, and they all kind of have a different view and perspective, but are also looking at different pools of responses, across the industry. So it makes it really hard to say that this is 100% accurate. And what's missing from that? How do you define what an event planner versus an event professional versus an event marketer versus, there's lots of definitions.
Bruno, do you think that entities are actually taking some of that information, or like the average salaries that are in these reports, and telling HR this is what we're going to stick to with the jobs that we need to fill?
I don't think so.
No,
I think what sort of rules in HR is get the best candidate for the least amount of money. I mean, not that I have a huge body of experience. This is anecdotal, but I think that, I don't think they're looking at those reports necessarily. I don't know, Jen, you've been in that spot.
No,
they're going to go, oh, we're going to hire a new, executive. Let's look at the Convene Salary Survey.
No, if we looked at those reports, we wouldn't be hiring anyone in corporate. I'll tell you that, because those reports are not accurate in regards to what a corporate executive salary or a range looks like.
So there you go. We can throw them away. Let's throw them away.
Well, look at just what I said about the example. It's 350 people, 19%, I think, were corporate. I mean, do the math. That's very small amount of folks. And we don't know what level they're actually were at, right? So maybe there were 5 people that were at senior director level or higher out of that entire report. So, but to answer your question about from an HR perspective, or if I was creating a job description and I was looking to hire someone, I'm not really, I might look at that report, but I would quickly disregard those types of reports, and rely more on data that, from my peers or from my own personal experience. And then also what other roles within, say, a marketing organization, what are those management roles? What are those director roles? What are those senior director roles, when I'm trying to figure out what the right pay rate would be? And HR will always provide some type of a band based on their own research for that level role in X city with X criteria, but they would not use this report.
Yeah, so it just probably creates anxiety in people.
Sure. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Yeah. Does anyone feel it?
It's also all relative. I mean, once you put out a job, announcement, you're going to get X number of candidates, and then you're going to compare the pool one to another. You'll rule out the obvious people that aren't a good fit. But say you have 10 or 20 candidates left, you're going to go with maybe the one that has more skills, more education, more experience, more whatever, for what you're willing to pay, even though, and that's on paper, even though maybe there are other people that actually would do a better job. It's all relative based on, the time you're hiring and who you get in the hopper, those are the people you choose amongst.
What makes it a little more interesting is these new laws by state that force you to post salaries now. If you ever paying attention to that, first, like in Colorado was first, and it's just made it really interesting, because I think we're all, even outside of the world of events, we're conditioned to not talk about money. like talking about money, how much money you make, how much money you want to make, what your aspirations are with money is a taboo. You just don't talk about it. You don't tell the person you sit next to how much you make. What if they make more than you? Like, what if they make less than you? Like, that's so across a team, you don't talk about it. So now with this new stuff, you can go on LinkedIn, you can look at a job and you can see what the pay range for that job is going to be, like, out of the gate. And I think that is also something now that we're seeing this, and we're seeing now the disparity in what someone might get paid in this role because it's now public in this state versus maybe what we were making or what somebody else was, making. So then, like, the light bulbs start going off, like, well, wait a second, how is this job posted for $180,000? And, gosh, we make, $75,000 or $80,000 in the same, what seems to be the same role. So I think that's a bit disruptive, but it also creates a much more, there are so many applicants for jobs now. Like, there are literally hundreds or even sometimes thousands of applicants for jobs because that information is now public. So that's another interesting dynamic that comes into the play. When people are looking
I always look at those job descriptions and go, okay, it's between 80 and 125.
Well, yeah, that's another factor, Michelle. Excellent point.
Refresh my resume so I hit all the keywords to make sure I'm in the 125 consideration.
Yeah, absolutely.
So imagine if that transparency is not like by state, by company within our organization. Now that would be a shit show. And this is where you would see so much more disparity between, the women, the men, the number of years of experience, etc. And I honestly, I don't know if leadership is ready for that. I honestly don't think they're ready for that. But, like, let's talk about skills for a second. Right now, the common conversation within our industry is, oh, we're bleeding. We don't have the talent that we need to move forward. This is, something that they are just complaining about. And so you have this whole thing of, is the talent pool really shrinking? Or are we not attracting the right talent and actually compensating them the right way? And on the flip side, you also have the rise of the freelancers and of the consultants, and which I know that we're going to talk about in a bit. But when it comes to skill set and the compensation as for that skill set or that professional that's coming in, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, well, first of all, we've talked about, I think that, the work that we do in the events industry, and this goes across all levels and roles, from what we would maybe consider to be someone who's a straight up planner to, someone who's now taking that and managing people to doing event marketing, all of that. It takes mad skills. Okay. So I wasn't born in events. I came from sales and marketing and kind of fell into events. But, I think a couple things. One is the perception of what it takes to do this job is so critically important as it relates to salaries.
Mm-hmm.
And that comes from where events is positioned within your organization and how well the events business unit is valued and appreciated and respected. And so if you are here, if events is here in the organization, it's oftentimes can be the receiver of work. Okay, we've already made all the important decisions around strategy. Let's go ahead and give that to the events team to execute. Versus when events is at a higher level and elevated, and it has a seat at the table and is part of strategy, is part of portfolio design, is attached to the business, is seen as an asset to achieve those business goals, because events now is the number one marketing channel that you have in your portfolio. Number one. So if you're higher there, then events already has that, it is appreciated. And so one of the jobs of a leader is to navigate that and get that to the right level. And so it is then appreciated and valued. The other part of that are the skills that are required. They continue to change over time. We've seen them change tremendously over the last couple of years. Events are not a single entity. They're a 360 approach. It's a whole different way of doing things. And, we were talking earlier, now the market, just the actual job market is shifting so much to be skills-based versus what we would traditionally call experience-based. So less about what degree you have, less about the number of years of experience you have. We could have somebody with 3 years experience in events that is a stronger candidate than somebody with 15 years. Like, where do those years of experience come in? I'm more concerned about your skills, less about certifications, less about your years of experience, and more about creativity, strategy. Are you able to identify and solve a problem? And are you able to think out of the box? Can you take, those types of things? And what kind of a person are you? What's important to you, your values, and how do we align to that? And how would you be a good fit for the team? We talked about this a little bit earlier too. The number one skill now for hiring, and this is outside of events, this is across the board, and we had a laugh about it, is growth mindset. Like, who would have thought? That's the most important skill that you can have now, because it means you can make a mistake, you can recover quickly, you can have a solution, and you can move on. That's a really valuable skill in what we do, right? There's not a lot of room for mistakes either, but we make
like
Bruno's like,
I know you're like, I know, but
it's just a name for what really good employees already do. Really good people that are in it to win it. They're constantly improving their skill sets, which, by the way, according to the Convene survey, 85% of the people surveyed pay for their own upskilling. They pay to go to their own events, to do their own certifications, all of that stuff. So that's another thing that's kind of messed up. But I don't know, the whole event-led growth thing, Jordan, I'm sorry, I know you love that, and Ben mentioned it. I don't even know what it means. It's just like, to old people like me, it just means like, that's the baseline. Like, it's just got a name to it now. Or maybe I'm looking at it the wrong way. Like, what is it? What's event-led growth? And why should you have an event mindset, a growth mindset?
Well, event-led growth means that events are what's driving results. So, at the core of, we're in a place now where how we live, how we work, how we gather, how we lead, how we travel is like this one giant knot, right? Everybody works remote. Everything is like so tied together. And at the core of that is social connection, right? Social connection is what's really driving all of those things. And how we feel about ourselves, how, the whole sense of belonging, following what Storycraft is doing and kind of connecting back to that. That's what we do. We own social connection. Events own social connections and has the power to drive results, because we impact how people feel, either about themselves, about a brand, about a thing, about whatever it is. And we own the power to drive those results. That is always been there, to your point, but now has been elevated to another level.
But do you think, Jen, in regards to the disparity between the salaries that event, professionals are getting, and with this huge mission and that you're describing right now, the disparity in the salary is because potentially leadership don't see the magnitude of it. So therefore they don't pay for it. And so, like what you're discussing right now and sharing, we know what we do. We create the experiences, we create the social, bonding and stuff. And all they think about is like, how many exhibitors did we sell? Did we sell sponsorship at like XX millions of dollars or not? Are our numbers back than as they were in 2019? So I think the disparity, and this is where the salaries don't jive as well, is where we have not reset how important events are or how important our jobs are in leading that force, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the job of an event leader, in it within the organization. Like, I would have considered it my job as a leader to make decisions about whether or not, number one, those events that we're talking about, those, you're talking about sponsorships or exhibits or things like that, were anything that were going to really move the needle for us, right? Number one. So I think that's the other thing, is we're doing a lot of these people are still doing a lot of things that they've done before and not evaluating whether or not they're moving the needle, for lack of a better term. And so you're getting stuck doing these things that really are not really generating results or might not be achieving results, but you're kind of stuck in this cycle. And I think that's the job of the event leadership, of your event leadership team, is to, one, like I said before, elevate events within the organization, but then also take ownership for what is going to drive the needle and building the right strategy and portfolio around that, so that those expectations are properly set up front. Here's your job, is to set the expectations, right? So these are the expectations. These are the things we're going to do to drive the business forward. And these are the expectations right up front for how that's going to be. Versus a lot of times what happens is, this is the way we've always done it. Here, we're going to keep doing it. Let's give that to the events team. And then they're running like a hamster on a wheel, trying to be effective and achieve results, and getting more and more burnt out, when in fact they're being asked to do something that really isn't achievable or going to move the needle. So that's, I kind of look at those scenarios. And going back to something else we talked about, and that's where that's a lot of times where the burnout comes from, because those boundaries have not been properly, and those expectations have not been set.
Or the expectations, like we talked about expectations. So, and I think maybe this is what 2024 should be all about. 2024 should be, first and foremost, resetting the expectations and your moat. I call it the moat. You're going to have to protect everything around you, your mindset, your energy, your IP as well. I think a lot of people are going to have to rethink all that intellectual property and ideas that they have, who they're dishing it to, who they're sharing it with, etc. And then I also think that leadership needs to set the expectations in the sense of workload, in the sense of, even time on email, or shutting down, really shut down, and all of that. So the reset is there for that. I think the reset is also in the conversation about events, and in the conversation about what it entails. And this is much bigger than a brown bag lunch and learn for the event leader to go internally and tell everybody, and within the company, guess what I do? Like, to Sean's point, we picked different tablecloths. That's not what we do. No. We don't want coffee cups, etc. So I think that's the reset that needs to happen. And a lot of event profs that I speak to are just exhausted. They don't have it in them to do it. They don't have it in them to say, yet another year, I'm going to deal with this bullshit. And when they do, and they don't get compensated, but yet actually they get reprimanded for not bringing in numbers from 2019, which is bullshit to me, they leave. Yeah. They leave, and they leave a huge hole, which what then happens? The leader comes in and fills it with 2 to 3 people for that one person.
Yeah. Yeah. First of all, just go ahead. Sorry, Michelle, go ahead.
I was just thinking that it sounds like there is a huge divide between the language that leadership is speaking, which is very transactional, which is very ROI, which is all of that stuff, and the understanding that planners who are fulfilling these objectives are using the language that they're using. They're all about, yes, I got this many people in the door, and I met these budget numbers and X, Y, and Z. Leadership is saying, but how did that meet our organizational goals? What was the return on investment of events in general, or this event? There's a disconnect there. I think the solution to that is for planners to be taught how to speak transactionally and in the way that leadership understands about the role and the value that they provide. And I don't think they do that as much. But Jen, I interrupted you. I'm sorry.
No, when Dolly said 2019, I got a chill up the back of my spine, because I think if anyone is trying to do anything they did in 2019, I mean, come on, forget it, forget about that. And
every single client, every single conversation, every single webinar, every single event you go to, our numbers are almost as close as 2019.
No.
Why are you
Stop
using
it.
that as a whatever, a benchmark anymore?
It's an apple and an orange. Like,
No, and I think what we need to talk about here, what all about salaries, but like what is attached to that is, what are you going to do better in order to protect your talent that is internal, and to protect, this is what I don't understand. Like, if you're looking at events, we do so much that you don't even see, right? But like, you don't protect the intel that's within the body. You don't protect the body or the mind of the talented people that you have. And then it's a domino effect. So we talk about mindfulness, and we talk about, let's protect them. And then what? Then you have to also take a look at, like, it's almost like a listening game. We're not listening, I think, to our talented people within our companies.
Mhm.
well, I mean, that's empathy, right? That's leading
Yep.
with empathy, and that's something that none of us are taught, really. So think about it. You become a leader most of the time because you're somebody who was really good at your job, right? You were good at your job, so you got promoted and you became a leader. Hopefully, you got a bigger salary and you got all the things that go along with it. But nobody taught you how to take care of people. Nobody
Yes.
taught you how to be empathetic, how to be a better listener, how to relate to others. You were just better. You're good at your job, so you should lead a team. And so I think that's one of the, changing first of all, changing how we support leaders, right? So that they can better take care of their teams. And one of those things is being more empathetic, and learning how to be more empathetic. The other thing is about vulnerability, and how it's okay for us to make mistakes or not be perfect all the time, or not be 100%. I mean, we work in an industry where when we make mistakes, they can have a really big impact, right? Some of the mistakes
Right.
that could have a domino, effect in very negative ways. But creating an environment where it's okay to make mistakes and to learn from those and to move on is another thing. And we do that by making our own mistakes as leaders. And the other thing is about purposely connecting with the people on our teams. A lot of times in this job, we're leaders, but we're also individual contributors, right? So we're not just leading a team, but we're also doing the work. And that's inherent to our industry. And that's another problem, right? Our job should be to take care of the people, but it's not. We're doing the work too. So we're also going 100 miles an hour, and we're not really spending the time to take and connect with people. And leader, who we work for, is the number one factor that determines our well-being at work outside of the scope of our job. So if we can help leaders be better and stronger and more mentally fit, then they will be able to help their teams in the same way. That's just sort of a little bit of a, on the mental wellness piece of this. Then the other side of that is, it's not just about of the salary. What we get paid is super important. I will never say it's not. It's super important that we feel valued and respected and get paid what we feel. Everyone has their own way of evaluating that. But it's also about the other things that go with it. Like, what kind of autonomy do we have to make decisions? And then there's the other things like, you go on an event and you work straight through on that event. You know how it is when you're on the program itself. Like, you can't say to someone, your hours are 8 to 4. That's not reality, right? Like, so when that comes, that's going to be harder, right? That moment in time is going to be harder. So why aren't we giving people 4 days off after that event? How hard is that? That costs you nothing as an organization to do. Nothing. Don't force them to take vacation time. I always do this for my team all the time. You don't take vacation time. Don't take an I'm giving it to you. This is a gift for thanking you for the extra hard work that you're doing. Like, treat people like they're humans. They're taking time away from their families. You're doing all these things. And then the other things, the surveys are all about salary, but what about bonuses?
Yeah.
And what about
Or perks?
401ks? Those affect a 401k is such a simple, that again is an organizational level, but when you're evaluating jobs and what you're getting out of those jobs, these things affect your long-term wealth and your life long term that are often.
Well, it also affects the longevity of the people staying with you,
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely.
Well, and if you're a single person too, 100K
Yeah.
doesn't go that far. If you're living in San Francisco and you're renting an apartment or whatever to be a planner, you can hardly make it.
Yeah. Well, that's, I mean, with some of the things I've seen in the survey, yeah, like how would you, how could you manage the cost of living in a city like San Francisco or Boston or New York or any of the big cities? And, that's another thing, is thinking about, and this is something we're seeing change in the workforce in general, right? I mean, people talk about well-being, they talk about, your level of wellness affects your well-being, which is your level of happiness. And if I'm happy, I'm more apt to stay, right? So what are the things, but these are cultural changes within an organization, not just specifically about event teams. So, as an event leader, you sort of have to, you've got the organizational level of what they're doing or not doing, and then you've got sort of the bubble of your team. And so what can you do as a leader to foster that environment that is more, it's not just the salary, it's the other things that go along with the right environment that people want to stay. But salary is a real thing.
Yeah.
It is a real thing. And you can't say, well, you get all these other things, so don't worry about your salary. I mean, this is called cut the shit, cue the genius, right? That's bullshit, right? Right. We all have a life to live, and then salary is a big factor in that. So you can't.
I wonder too if employees are competing with AV companies and other suppliers who are charging a lot more now. So, leadership has got to go, do we cut back on, what area do we cut back on? Salaries is an easy target, I think.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I would say that, as far as the event world goes, and the fact that things are more expensive is really more of an issue of properly anticipate. And this is, again, leadership's role is to be able to anticipate those things and also prepare the organization and plan for that. And whether that means that you're going to make changes in a different area, like you're going to make your event is going to become more intimate and smaller, or you're going to go to micro, whatever those things are, in order to accommodate the budgets. And when you look at things from an organizational perspective, most certainly you are downsizing and laying off people because, and across an organization, not necessarily just events, but you're doing that because, there are bigger reasons that you're doing that, right? Other organizational goals are not being met. And so, decreasing staff is a way to sort of augment that. But I wouldn't take my event budget and necessarily, take people off the team because, have to take people off the team because the price of events went higher. It would be more restructuring what that looks like. But well, I don't know. That's just my experience personally.
Well, it's obvious that we still have a lot to do within this area in our industry when it comes to salaries or when it comes to compensation packages, as well as really understanding what the events, responsibilities are and the job descriptions. I think titles are fake right now.
Yeah.
And I know that, Times Magazine just announced their first chief event officer. So all eyes on her. I can't remember her name, but that's going to be interesting to see how that fleshes out. And then we'll see how many people actually change their title to CEO, chief event officer, and then we'll go from there. But so Jenn, thank you.
Event-led growth officer.
Chief growth officer. That's what you are. You're a chief growth officer.
No, growth mindset officer. Let's make the big acronym here. Come on, right?
We need to keep adding words.
Mindset officer. Like, you need the whole thing.
SAP Insider I think has a chief events officer as well.
Well, they didn't get on the front cover of the magazine, so they don't. It doesn't. It doesn't count.
Is the Time chief events officer a woman or a man?
Woman.
It is?
Yeah. All right. Well, this has been on fire. The chat has been on fire. And I know that this is not a one and done deal. I do think that we need a part 2 in regards to compensation packages and salaries and value of the freelancers and the consultants, because I think that's a huge rise as well. And to be honest, I actually think that's going to have an impact on salaries of our own CEG FRs, or however you want to call them. But Jenn, thank you so much for joining us, and this has been a pleasure. Next time we should meet in person and do it from
on location. On location.
But and Bruno, this has been fantastic. I can see the wheels and the smoke coming out of your always. But thank you to all our geniuses for being with us on Cut the Shit, Cue the Genius. And we have a couple of announcements that are coming up for next week, so we will definitely share with you. I'm teasing you guys a bit, but if you have any topics, or if you want to be on the show, or if you have speakers that you would want to see on the show, please let us know, and we will see you next week. Take care.
Bye.